When Army of Darkness finally hit theatres in 1993, it carried a lot of weight on its shoulders. It was the big budget conclusion to a trilogy that started in a cold, drafty cabin in Tennessee, and expectations were sky high. However, the road to the big screen was anything but smooth. Between legal battles over the rights and heavy studio interference, the film that arrived in theatres wasn't exactly what the filmmakers had envisioned.
People didn't even know it was Evil Dead 3, and there were lots of people who liked Evil Dead 1 and 2.
When the film premiered, the reaction was mixed, to say the least. It didn't pull in the box office numbers that Universal or the filmmakers were hoping for.
After Army of Darkness, it was dead. That movie cost $13 million and it made $13 million.
And it seemed like the general public just wasn't ready for a medieval epic powered by slapstick and Three Stooge style comedy. Over the years, Army of Darkness transformed into a legendary cult classic.
And the winner is Sam Raimi.
Thank you very much. Great honor to receive this award. Joseph DeLuca and Debbie Elson for Army of Darkness. Tony Gardner and KMB Effects for Army of Darkness.
And Beth Davis for Army of Darkness.
The winner is Bruce Campbell for Army of Darkness.
Today, it's a massive fan favourite, and it's actually my second favourite film in the whole franchise, but there's a specific reason why this film is an obsession for collectors. Out of every movie in the Evil Dead franchise, Army of Darkness has the most physical media releases. Now, if you're a collector like me, your shelves are probably filled with different copies of this film. You may own the VHS tapes, or even the modern 4K editions. This film has been repackaged more times than Ash has said groovy, but it's not just about the different artwork on the cover. This is the only film in the franchise that has this many distinct versions. In this video, I'll be taking a look at 4 primary cuts of Army of Darkness, starting with the US theatrical cut, which runs for 81 minutes, then moving on to the director's cut, which runs for 96 minutes, then the international cut, which runs for 88 minutes, and finally the US television version, which also runs for 88 minutes. Just a quick note before we get into the film's complicated history, there are way too many tiny frame-by-frame differences to go over every single one. Instead, I'm going to focus on the big changes and the specific vibe that makes each version feel different. Starting with the US theatrical cut, this is the leanest version of the movie, and it's a direct result of Universal Studios taking the reins. They wanted a fast-paced version of the film. In this version, character development seemed like it was the first to go. The love scene between Ash and Sheila has been removed, and instead we get a single kiss and a fade to black. The setup for the windmill sequence has been erased, and even lines of dialogue were altered to make Ash seem more like a traditional action hero. This is the version that gave us this iconic line:
"Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun."
It's punchy and legendary, sure, but it replaced this original line.
"I ain't that good."
This line felt more like the Ash Williams we know and love. Also missing from the theatrical cut is this line.
"I need more men."
And instead, it's been replaced with this line.
"Yeah, maybe I'm a Chinese jet pilot."
Not to mention that the speech that Ash gives to the knights at Castle Kandar has also been removed. Another scene that has been removed is actually one of my favourites, and it's the moment where Lord Arthur admits to Ash that he was wrong to call him a coward. Throughout the film, both of their relationships is defined by tension and distrust. For Arthur, a character defined by his honour, to humble himself and admit he was wrong is a powerful moment of growth. It's also worth noting the change in Henry the Red's arrival during the battle. In the director's cut, he and his men arrive near the very end, just before Ash defeats the skeletal Evil Ash. In the theatrical version, however, they arrive mid-battle. This creates a glaring continuity error, as they completely disappear from the background for the rest of the fight. And then we have the theatrical cut's ending, a classic case of studio interference. In this version, Ash returns to his time and continues his life at S-Mart. This was a major change from Sam Raimi's original vision, which I'll get onto when I talk about the director's cut. Universal executives felt that the original ending for Army of Darkness was just a bit too depressing. But did they even watch the first 2 movies? The first film ends with the evil force slamming into Ash while he screams at the camera. Evil Dead 2 ends with him being stranded in the year 1300 AD, screaming no as the Knights of Castle Kandar hail him as their saviour. But seriously, can you imagine if those two movies had been forced into happy endings? This series was built on relentless, nightmarish horror. A bleak conclusion wasn't a flaw, it was part of the franchise's DNA. Many fans prefer the smart ending because they want to see Ash kicking ass, and that's exactly what they get here, and that's totally fine. But my opinions are different, however, and I'll share my thoughts once we get to the director's cut. While the speed keeps things moving, the lack of narrative flow makes the film somewhat fragmented. Universal transformed the movie into a series of rapid-fire set pieces to ensure the film never slows down for a second. Now we move on to the big one, the 96-minute director's cut. This is Sam Raimi's original vision. Before we dive into the scenes, I have to talk about a major turning point for us physical media nerds, the Anchor Bay 2-disc DVD. For a lot of us, this was the first time we could officially own both the theatrical and director's cuts in one set. But watching the director's cut on this specific release was a really jarring experience. At the time, Anchor Bay claimed they couldn't find high quality elements for extra scenes. Their solution? They used a copy from Bruce Campbell's personal video collection, and because this was their only option, this meant that while you were watching the movie, the quality would suddenly drop. The image would get incredibly dark, grainier and muddier the second a restored scene started. It really pulled you out of the experience. Thankfully, modern 4K and Blu-ray releases have since fixed this, giving the director's cut the polish it deserved all along. In this cut, we get more of the Tiny Ash's sequence, which includes Ash singing London Bridge as he stomps towards a fleeing Tiny Ash, which leads to him getting a nail through his foot. Although it's strange because the director's cut doesn't include Joseph LaDuca's Tiny Ash's score during that specific sequence, even though the track remains a staple of both the US theatrical and television versions. Another highlight is a personal favourite of mine, the sequence where the skeletal evil Ash actually breathes fire. It's a fantastic piece of practical effects work that adds a visceral threat to the confrontation. But I can't wrap up the director's cut without talking about the ending. This is the biggest change in this version. Here, Ash doesn't go back to S-Mart. He drinks the wise man's potion but accidentally miscounts the drops. He was supposed to take 6, but accidentally took 7. This results to Ash waking up in a post-apocalyptic future. It's perfect because it shows that Ash is not a perfect hero. Sure, he's the promised one, foretold in an ancient book, but even he makes mistakes. Now we're moving on to a little bit of a strange one, the international version, which was prepped by Dino De Laurentiis for audiences outside of the US, and it's a bit of a Frankenstein edit. It effectively trims down the director's cut, but swaps the apocalyptic finale for the upbeat S-Mart conclusion. Known famously as Captain Supermarket in Japan, this surprisingly sanitizes the film's signature slapstick. The Tiny Ash's sequence is gutted more severely here than in any other release. Gone is the moment where Ash yanks a fork from his backside, as well as this boastful moment.
Ha! Yeah!
Fans of the Three Stooges inspired chaos will also miss the hammer threat, the bucket of slop to the face, Ash skidding onto the hot grill, and his subsequent soot-covered mishap with the overhead pipe. Even the London Bridge pursuit and the nail through the foot gag are completely absent. Furthermore, the Gulliver's Travels moment, where Ash awakens to find himself bound to the floor and captured, has been completely re-edited. These cuts leave the middle of the film feeling strangely hollow. With that middle ground covered, we can finally move on to the TV cut. This is quite a fascinating curiosity for collectors and fans of the film because it actually contains footage found in no other version. It's kind of like the severely edited for television version of Evil Dead 2. This TV version of Army of Darkness restores a sequence where Ash first meets Lord Arthur that was left out of the other 3 cuts, and I really wish this was featured in the director's cut. It's awesome. However, saying that, there is a downside to this TV edit. Since the film was edited for 90s broadcast television, certain lines of dialogue had to be altered to comply with network standards, which primarily involved removing or replacing profanity. Here are just a couple of examples.
Yo, She-Witch. Let's go.
He was so busy filling me full of his secret little words and his phrases and his baloney that he never said anything about this.
I think it's safe to say it's a sanitized version that lacks the bite of the original, but for the completionist, it's a must watch just to see those rare deleted scenes put back into the film. So, after looking at all the evidence, where do I stand? Well, personally, the director's cut is my preferred way to watch the film. It's Sam Raimi's original vision, and I feel the story and the movie work better this way. It gives the characters room to breathe, and that apocalyptic ending feels like the perfect cynical bookend to Ash's journey that started back in that cabin. But that's just my take. With 4 distinct versions to choose from, everyone has their own definitive version of Army of Darkness. Which version of the film do you prefer? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, stay groovy.